So, why am I sitting in a graveyard? It's an odd place to sit, don't you think? Graveyards are something that I have always been fascinated and possibly obsessed with. I think that would be a good word. I wasn't really raised with going to graveyards and cemeteries very often. I had grandparents that passed away, but they didn't pass away till I was older and married and moved away. Something happened though. Something changed that I found in time intrigued me. What was it about graveyards that intrigued me? I didn't know. As time went on, I discovered I was fascinated with death. Intrigued, fascinated, obsessed, but not scared. So it was not uncommon for me to start making regular visits to different cemeteries and find cemeteries just off the side of the road no matter where we went and what we did, different towns, different states even, and he would see a cemetery and pull in knowing that I would be interested in walking around and looking at all the headstones. I found that the more I did this, I was drawn to certain headstones, not the newer ones, not the ones that you could see had plants by them that were well kept and had flowers planted and memorial things beside it that were actively being visited. No, not those ones. The ones that were old and you could barely see the name or the year that they were born or even passed away. No, I was drawn to those ones. I was drawn to the ones that were grown over, to the ones that were forgotten. Yeah, the ones that were forgotten. So it became my desire to find these specific ones in different graveyards because they were forgotten. And as I would stand beside these gravesides, I would picture their loved ones around them. Normally, we're looking at the 1800s or so that I would find them. So I would picture their loved ones and family and friends around as they were lowered into the ground and standing around as they said their goodbyes, their final farewells to someone that was important and loved. But since then, time has gone on and generations have passed, and those that are related get further and further and further away. That person was loved at one point in their life. That person was cared for and cherished, but now sits there forgotten. So graveyards for me was something that I always wanted to do. And as I found myself getting darker and darker and darker, again, remember I said death didn't scare me. And when death doesn't scare someone and they get into the darkest and deepest part of their life, that's a scary place to be. Not for me, but for those around me that loved me and care for me. We're going to talk about death today and why it's important to talk about this, why it's important to have this conversation and to open the dialogue, because this has a stigma around it as well. Those that suffer from mental illnesses to a point where they're in the darkest place they've ever been, I can't tell you the pain that we endure. It's not just emotional pain, it's physical pain, it's mental pain, pain that we have never had in our entire lives. I have given birth to 2 children, and that was painful. This is some pain that I have never experienced in my life. I just wanted it to stop. I wanted it to end. This is excruciating. This is enormous pain, and the only thing I could think of to end this pain that just wasn't going to go away was to end my life. At one point, my therapist asked me if there was anything I would live for, and my husband asked me if I would live for him. And at that point I said, yes, I would, and I did. The first few times that I had wanted to end it, he reminded me that I promised him that I would stay around for him. But when it finally got to a point where it was the darkest of dark, I could not feel for him. I couldn't feel what his emotions would have been like if I ended my life. I could not put myself in his place in order to understand his pain. I couldn't put myself in other people's place, my family and my friends' place, to understand where they would be when I decided that I was no longer going to live. I couldn't comprehend it. I couldn't fathom what their feelings and emotions would be like. I couldn't be guilted into trying to save my life because it wasn't going to work. I could not be told, but think of your family and your friends and what they'll feel like and what they'll hurt, because I wasn't capable of feeling their emotions. I wasn't capable of understanding their pain. And so sometimes people think after someone has decided they can't live in this pain anymore, they think, why didn't they consider the pain of the people that they left behind? Because they physically can't. They can't do it. It's impossible. Life for them becomes unbearable. To ask somebody to remember to live for somebody else when they are suffering such immense and deep, dark pain won't work. The one person in my life that I have given everything to, my all, I could not stay alive for him even. So that's why I'm sitting here in a graveyard, because we're all going to be here someday. I do have a fear of being forgotten. It's part of the reason why I don't want to be buried in a graveyard, to be honest with you. I'd rather be cremated and put my ashes somewhere that I always liked to be. That would be by the water. But that fear of being forgotten wasn't even strong enough. And that is a big fear that I always had, was, am I going to be that grave that's broken, that grave that is forgotten and grown over? Or am I going to be tended to and taken care of even after my death? This is an important topic, one that we need to start a conversation about, because you can't guilt somebody to decide to stay alive. You can't convince them to see outside of their pain to see yours if they were to die. Let's start a conversation.